Doug Mouton and Ricardo LeCompte were inside the Saints indoor facility where it is air conditioned,
Yes.
not air conditioned outside. Day one of training camp practice. Ricardo, look, first of all, it's a slightly shorter practice. There is a ramp up period. First thing I think all of us are watching is Derek Carr, obviously.
Yeah, and of course he's coming in this offseason, the new quarterback, the starting quarterback for the Saints, and he has said this offseason he's mastered the offense, meaning that he understands what's going on. It's a new verbiage, new language. That's the adjustment everyone's got to make when you go from one team to another. It's more the leadership stuff that he's got to kind of build on. It's kind of build the rapport with some of these receivers, and certainly it looks like him and Michael Thomas are on the same page, and Michael Thomas looked great in his first practice. He's full go going, which hasn't been the case the last few seasons. Very first pass that they had in team drills went to Michael Thomas, and he had a nice little out route, went up the sideline, looked like Michael Thomas of old. We've been waiting these last couple of years for Michael Thomas to look fully healthy, be productive on the field. We haven't seen that. Maybe this is the year that Michael Thomas finally is healthy, everything is right, and he looks at least close to what that all-pro level he was back in 2019.
And what was interesting was you could tell that was a mission of the whole offense. And Derek Carr even said that was to get Michael Thomas something early and say, all right, we got that out the way. Look, to me, all summer, what's impressed me the most about Derek Carr is how he has sort of grown into this role and moved into this role, been comfortable in the role. He's been the guy that everybody wants him to be every step of the way. He's said all the right things. He's done all the right things. Obviously, they haven't put pads on yet. They haven't done any real football yet. But from a non-football standpoint, he's gotten everything done. You can see where he and Pete Carmichael are working nicely together. And there's a bunch of positives on day one. Michael Thomas making a catch early is huge. Look, Jimmy Graham made a catch early. This is before team drills. He went up and made a nice catch. It was like, oh, all right, Jimmy Graham can still get up a little bit. And people are raving about what an influence he is in the locker room and can be in the locker room. And it was interesting to see Taysom Hill. One of the big storylines all summer from Pete Carmichael at minicamp was that they wanted to get Taysom Hill more involved in the passing game, and we saw him involved a lot in the passing game on practice one. That's a mission from the start, and Taysom Hill even joked about it post-practice about, yes, he noticed that as well, that he was involved in the passing game more on day one.
It's so funny when Taysom Hill was talking and saying that now he's going into this role this year where it's like, he wants to have structure. Everybody, especially these guys at this high level, they want to know from the start of when I have to go my workout to what I have to get accomplished during the day. There's no structure with Taysom Hill. It's like one day he's the tight end, next day he's playing running back, then he's going to go run routes like a wide receiver. Taysom Hill, and it was funny when you asked him about, do you kind of embrace this jack of all trades role? And he goes, it does invigorate him a little bit every offseason, not kind of knowing what he's going to be, but just the fact that he gets to try his hand at different things. And you don't have many athletes at this level playing multiple positions.
Any sport.
At any sport where you're like, I can think of like a Shohei Ohtani, for example, who's like a batter and a pitcher, but he's playing 4 different positions at a high level in the NFL. That is just unheard of for a guy.
And the other part of that is, look, Cam Jordan shows up at camp, and he had great stuff today, today about wanting to get to year 15. Cam Jordan shows up, and he's refining his technique. Same technique, same role, defining it. Demario Davis is not doing anything different this summer. Mike Thomas, Marshawn Lattimore, they're all trying to get better in this role. Taysom Hill is showing up in year 7 and learning new stuff.
It's incredible.
And that is something you just don't see at this level. You don't see at this team. I mean, think about it. Eric McCoy's been an NFL center every moment since he walked in this building. He's working at that role. And Taysom Hill, even right now as training camp starts, admitted he doesn't really know where this evolution is going in the next 2 months. And look, I find it incredibly exciting. He said as a guy with structure, it's sometimes hard to deal with, but it's also invigorating. And it's stunningly unique at this level.
Yeah, and the constant communication he has to have with Pete Carmichael. I mean, he goes to Pete and goes, all right, what's my role today? What am I going to do? But at least that communication happens with those two. And the fact that and there was a criticism last season where maybe Taysom Hill wasn't utilized the way he should have been. Yeah, Pete Carmichael took that criticism a lot where maybe, you could have used Taysom in this role, or whatever. Maybe he could have helped you win games. And when he was utilized, the Saints started winning games, and it was like, where was this?
Yeah.
At least that conversation is starting now in training camp. It's starting in the offseason, going, hey, here's our ideas of getting you at least more involved. And it looks like there is going to be an emphasis of using Taysom Hill in this offense this year. You mentioned Cam Jordan, year 13, somebody who has perfected being at the defensive end role. And I love what Cam says. When you're going into these first week of training camp, you're perfecting mental reps. We don't know the toughness and the physicality that's going to come until they put on the pads. So right now he's trying to do everything he can mentally to make sure each reps it works for him, and make sure that he's like, all right, by the time we put the pads on, everything is right in terms of doing everything correctly, running the role that he has to do. Also, you can see, and he said something when you were asking, now that you're the veteran on this team, now that you have to take this leadership role, he's like, I've been doing that since year 3.
Yeah.
When they gutted the defensive room, and I was the one who was left, who was the veteran guy, he's used to this. So now you can see like an Isaiah Foskey or any of these new guys that are coming in. He's as comfortable in that role of being that veteran.
And he's now 10 years older than those guys.
And there is certainly an age gap there, but he says, I learn as much from them as they learn from me, and I try to, mix all of that in and just keep it moving forward. He's one of the guys who we know where we're going to get every year from him, and I don't feel like that drop-off is going to happen in year 13. He wants to play until year 15, which I certainly think he can do.
And then maybe beyond.
And maybe beyond. It just depends certainly of what happens, contract-wise and what the Saints want to do. But that's always a constant. And the biggest question we have in training camp is, what's going to happen on the other end? Who's going to be those guys? Or maybe in the defensive tackle, in the interior defensive line, who's going to help Cam Jordan out this year in the pass rush? But we already know Cam Jordan, year 13, we're going to get that same production, and I don't expect a drop-off this year.
I don't either. Okay, last thing. One of the things I try to do during camp practice is not watch for something, but to see who jumps out for me, whose name I'm writing down. I've got 2 that I wrote down today. I want to hear your thoughts too. I wrote down Peyton Turner.
Yes.
Now, I know the D-line's not doing anything. There's no pads. It doesn't count yet. But look, it's always positive when I'm writing your name down positively. There were twice that he jumped out at me and made himself be seen. And that's a great sign for Peyton Turner right off the bat. And then number 2, Andrew Dowell, who has been consistently a great training camp player. Pokes the ball out from Juwan Johnson, causes a fumble, scoops it up and starts running. And as soon as I looked up, it's, well, the great training camp player. There he is again. Did you have another one besides those guys?
Yeah, Paulson Adebo. And in the very first rep that they had, he had a pass breakup right away. And he's going to be in an intense competition here at training camp for that outside corner with Alontae Taylor. He had a very good first day. Dennis Allen has raved about how Paulson Adebo has been this offseason in terms of going, hey, he's played well. I think he's got enough talent to overtake it. Now we just got to see in this competition between him and Alontae Taylor who makes that next step. But Paulson Adebo certainly had a good first day on his way to trying to win that training camp battle.
Yeah, I thought so too. All right, Ricardo LeCompte, Doug Mouton, this is day 1 of training camp. We're going to be out here all camp. Those were a few early training camp observations.